co-hosting with us for this next hour, as long as we can keep him. We've also got Jim Lamon, who's running for the Senate from Arizona. A couple of things. A pretty explosive analysis by Dr. Shiva. Dr. Shiva is committed. He's got to leave. Dr. Shiva is committed. He's going to be on the show tomorrow. We're going to take our time. We're going to go through those slides in order, make sure everybody understands the math, and talk about what his analysis has shown. Remember, he's the man with two brains. He's got 4 advanced degrees, I think. 1 degree from MIT and then 3 advanced degrees from MIT. So very, very smart guy. We're going to have Dr. Shiva back on tomorrow to go through that pretty explosive analysis that he just did. Before I turn to Jim Lamon, Seth, a lot of people in the live chat and over at the America First Audits are blowing up your comments about Dan Crenshaw. Right, you've got some other issues too in Colorado and other places besides Texas, right?
Well, people need to kind of expand their horizons. It was very easy in November and December to be locked into those 6 contested states where the major lawsuits were. And then as we've been able to expand our horizons a bit and go for county to county, 3,000 plus counties and independent cities in the country, and see a lot more issues. So look at Colorado. The Secretary of State there, Jenna Griswold.
Yep.
Why in a state Biden won by 14 points? Would you make such a public spectacle to ban any post-election audits? That should be the kind of state where this is a slam dunk. 14 points, that would be like Mississippi or South Carolina banning election audits.
Well, let me play devil's advocate. Maybe she says, hey, it's just a waste of time. You guys are sore losers. You got Seth Keshel and Clements running around now. That it's over, it's done, it's 14 points. Let's move on to the next thing. What's your response?
I would consider it a mandate for the current administration. I read a book to my children at nighttime about the first 45 presidents and their accomplishments, their museums, their libraries. They're part of the history. Even Gerald Ford, a couple years in office. So this administration, you would think, would want to have a shred of legitimacy with 45 to 55% of the country.
He said rubber nose it. If you won by 14 points, you sit there and you shut down the whole movement by saying, hey, it was a 14-point win. Exactly. Do all the audits you want, 14-point win, then move on.
Well, so Biden carried Pennsylvania by more votes than Trump carried Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin by in 2016.
Yes.
And is in Pennsylvania, making sure that there's no audit there, which an audit verifying his win in Pennsylvania would absolutely legitimize his administration. It would silence all the critics. But,
that's what we need. That's what we need. Senate President Jake Corman to step up and back Doug Mastriano and get these subpoenas out there, and let's get the information. You got Shapiro's tweeting out last night, hey, Bannon's finally right. I'm going to stop this thing. Jake Corman's got all the power to get the subpoenas out there and start the process just like in Arizona. So I know we got a lot of work to do. Let's bring in Jim Lamon. Jim's from Arizona, running for the Senate there. Walk us through tell us what you think is the importance of getting to the bottom of 3 November in the state of Arizona. You're running for the Senate. Everybody's saying, hey, it's time to move on, time to look to the future. The election is about the future. Lamon, you're a tough football player. Tell us what you think about this 3 November movement, and particularly what's happening in Arizona.
Well, Steve, thanks. It's very important, obviously, for election integrity. It's the essential foundation of our republic. We have spent the time at the tip of the spear in Arizona to do the audit. They're in the wrap-up phase in the next 30 days. We've already seen preliminary findings which leave huge holes in any belief that it was fully transparent. Those have to be answered. And
let me ask you, you're a businessman, you're not a politician. When you look at the things that you've seen mathematically and what you've seen so far coming out of Maricopa County, as a businessman, a guy who runs it by the numbers, what does that tell you?
Exactly. The numbers are too big to believe in some cases with the amount of ballots that mailed out versus what came back in. Just on the basic premise, Steve, that those need to add up, and they don't. Many more came back than went out.
If you were buying a company, you would tell your guys, we need additional due diligence. We need confirmatory due diligence. If there's something wrong, I don't want to do this transaction because these numbers are moving around. They should be very solid. It should be a very simple process. People going to vote, count the votes, right? Moving all over. Would you call off a deal if you were putting your businessman's hat on?
Yeah, no question. And also just a basic audit. My company is private, but we go through an audit each year. We make sure that any issues that are there are corrected so that we've got a pristine balance sheet. The same thing, the most important thing we do in our country is that election. And so what we're doing in Arizona should be applauded. We believe we're out there setting an example for others, and we look forward to others following because our legislature has already taken some action on some bills to correct some of the issues that occurred, and we're looking for a lot more to occur before the next election to get this thing right.
As a business guy, you see this bill that's passed, 19 Republicans voted for this infrastructure bill, but you also got to get clearance by the debt ceiling. I know you're a finance and numbers guy. Walk us through as a senator. What if you were there right now with McConnell sitting in the room, and they don't have a lot of business guys, right? What would you be telling them?
Great point, Steve. It's the foundation of our country to make sure we don't put this debt onto our kids and grandkids and rolling it over. As your senator in Arizona, I will tell you today, I will never vote for another debt ceiling. It is time to draw the line and say we have
you
to.
You will never vote for an increase of the debt ceiling.
I will never vote for another debt ceiling in this country.
Well, they're going to sit there and go, you're irresponsible. The capital market's going to blow up. We can't default on the debt. The stock market's going to implode by 20%. You're going to hurt all the pension funds. This is part of the radical nature of the deplorables. Even Trump gave some relief on the debt ceiling. Why are you taking such a hard line?
Steve, it's time. You look what's occurred just in the last few years, even in a few months. This thing's out of control. We will not have a currency. We will not have a country if we don't stand up and say enough is enough, and at some point say we've got to take action to do the responsible thing. There is more than enough income and revenue going into the U.S. Treasury, more than enough to cover what we need to do in this country. We've got to prioritize. We've got to take care of our military and the law enforcement side and our most needy and vulnerable. And after that, Steve, everything's on the table.
Talk to us about the dollar. I mean, you just brought it up right then. These guys in Washington, and it's almost like they have no business sense at all. As an international businessman, how important is it to make sure that we've got a strong, solid dollar that people are dependent on? It's still the greatest export we have. Right now, the pressures are similar. The $1.2 trillion is just the beginning. They got another 3.5 on top of that, and they got more on top of this. They're looking at another 6-8. The debt ceiling limit they're going to open for is $6-8 trillion.
Playing right into the hands of the CCP. Many of these guys are very, very close to the Communist Chinese Party and wanting to bring down this currency, and that's got to stop. Foundation, the bedrock of our nation and of the debt that we have today is based on making sure that we can pay it and not keep rolling it over to kids and grandkids. We've got an explosive potential economy out there and bringing jobs back to the U.S. to grow the economy versus keep borrowing money.
You know, you've got Florida, you've got Texas, but I got to tell you, the beating heart right now of the MAGA movement, the beating heart of the Patriot movement is Arizona. You got patriots out there, they're on fire. I'm telling you, their sacrifice that they've done for the good of the nation is absolutely extraordinary. You're also a border state with a massive invasion on the southern border. Why would you be the MAGA? Everybody says I'm going to be a MAGA candidate. I'm the America First guy. Make your pitch here. Why is it Jim Lamon? Why are you the guy for Arizona to be the MAGA candidate?
See, first, not a politician, not a lawyer, businessman, as you said, ex-military and some linebacker in Alabama. So I know what it's going to be like to take that to the Senate and get things done. As I've traveled the state in the first 11 weeks, 11,000 miles put on the Yukon, and just seeing that great movement out there, I'm of their stripe. I'm the person who's standing up and speaking truth, just like we talked about the debt ceiling. Speaking with Brandon Judd on the border, he agrees it's an invasion. We're beyond the crisis phase.
You don't think you think that language is not too inflammatory? You don't. You said, hey, it's not an emergency, it's not a crisis. We have an invasion. Nigel Farage said that the first time on this show, people's heads blew up. Why do you believe it's an invasion?
Just being down there with Brandon all day and just seeing how many are being processed, not arrested, being processed, and the fact that, as he said, only 7 to 9% have any chance of something on the humanitarian side, and the balance of that military aid. It's an invasion. If you look at Yuma sector, how many are coming across, it's unbelievable. Going back, Steve, to the grassroots side, as I've met with them, I've been quietly behind the scenes supporting Republican conservative candidates over the last years.
What do you mean by that?
I've put in several $1 million to re-election
of your own money.
Of my own money, and particularly if you look at the Arizona House and Senate. Now, we had some squishes that we were able to take out last year because we focused on that. We're doing again that this year because we want to stand on principle in Arizona and make sure we bring this country back to where it needs to be. And they're signing 80% of those attending the grassroots meetings signing my petition, saying Lamon is my man and I'm backing. Steve, in 11 weeks, we already have over 1,000 volunteers that have come to the team. We've got a really strong infrastructure that we built, just like we do in our company, and it's a matter of priorities, securing that border.
Let me ask you about this border for a second. If you're back there as a business guy with Mitch McConnell and these pencil necks, which Mitt Romney, here's what I don't get. Of a $1.2 trillion bill, which I think under 30% is really for what we consider traditional infrastructure and even digital. How can they not have a penny for the wall? And what would you do? What would you do as one senator and the junior senator from Arizona? What would you do to combat that if you were in the chamber today?
Great point. Absolutely important. First order of business is to secure that border. Otherwise, we don't have a country. No bill will cross my desk until we have a route to securing that border. If we need to put the 3rd Army Corps out of Fort Hood, Texas, on that border until we can build that wall, we have got to stop things out there because it is literally, Steve, an invasion for those who are on the ground. Brandon Judd and others are speaking loudly about it, and no one's listening. Mark Kelly, of course, that's exactly in his interest not to close that border.
By the way, the cheers in the background, that was kind of a wrap-up. Mike Lindell's been given a fire and brimstone. We'll play it back after the break, after the 12 o'clock. We're going to play Mike Lindell's call to arms here. You got a lot of very enthusiastic state legislators here that are all down to get to the bottom. Full forensic audits. Mike Lindell, Seth Keshel, and Dave Clements have really started something here across the country. Only got a couple of minutes left, Jim Lamon. So I got to ask you. You're saying that, hey, I would demand a wall. I'm not going to give an inch on the budget. How do you anticipate to implement? People are saying, hey, a lot of guys talk to him. Walk us through. You got about 2 minutes. Once you're in Washington D.C., how are you going to hammer that home? How are you going to hammer all these campaign promises? How are you going to deliver for the people of Arizona in the MAGA movement?
I've been fortunate in my business career to do big things, make things happen. It's a matter of understanding what the priorities are, and we are literally on the edge of losing our country. And it's time for tough talk, not just tough talk, but it's time for tough action. I'll bring the linebacker mode to the Senate floor. It's America that stands on the premise there that we've got to be able to stop what's going on and say enough is enough.
You would call for the 3ID, 3rd Infantry Division, to go down to the border right now. You think the invasion is that big that you said, don't send me National Guard, I don't want to hear state troopers. I would actually call the Army down there to secure the border.
We'll do that and give the Border Patrol the backing they need because these guys are overwhelmed. Look at, and also as Brandon said, it is policy. President Trump had it right with remain in Mexico. They literally drive buses to the border today, get off, and basically walk across, and that's got to stop.
Okay, how can people get, if they like what they hear now in for our audience, how do they find out more about you?
Steve, Jim Lamon, LAMON.com. We've got a great movement going in Arizona. I'm putting in significant capital and can certainly use others to join our Army.
Real quickly, 30 seconds. You went from football player to Alabama to the Army. How did that happen? I thought you were going to go play pro. Why did you go in the Army?
Needed to get a civil engineering degree along the way and had an ROTC scholarship and wanted to serve my country. And then since then in the power industry has been a great experience taking it to the Senate floor. You're
a good man, Jim Lamon. Okay, Jim Lamon, give him a look. He's got information out there. He's going to be all over Arizona to the grassroots groups. Okay, short commercial break. We're going to return with Captain Seth Keshel. We're going to go down live on the floor. A lot of activity down there here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota at the Cyber Symposium. A lot of revelation is going to take place today. Hang on, take a short commercial break. Be right back.